We are your hosts for today. I am Juana Lefter, a managing partner of NNC Services. For those of you who do not know us, NNC is a global growth marketing company supporting B2B companies from all over the world, like you are, in achieving their growth targets. We have some great marketing professionals in our panel today that will share with you their tips and tricks for succeeding with marketing channels. I will ask each one of them to introduce themselves briefly. So let's all welcome Terry Mock, the Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at Rave Mobile Safety, is joining us from Boston. Hi, Terry.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the welcome. Well, as Juana said, I'm the Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at Rave Mobile Safety, and I have responsibility for strategy, marketing, and product. We're a very missional-driven company. We deliver critical communication and collaboration technology, and it's used to enable those who are responsible for our safety and our security to protect our communities. So whether it's your town or your city, or whether it's at work or at school or at a public space, that's where our tech is working. And I've been in the tech industry for over 20 years, mostly experienced in the B2B software and digital technology space, ranging from brand new startups to global companies. And what gets me excited each day is building teams, delivering on growth, driving go-to-market, and innovating products that add value. So I'm super excited to be here today with all of you.
Thank you so much, Terry, for being here. We also have Monica Dumitriu, Head of Marketing at Flowix.ai, joining us from Bucharest, Romania. Hi, Monica.
Hi, Juana. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. So I'm Head of Marketing at Flowix.ai, where one of the hottest startup in the financial services space. We just launched last year. And basically what we do, we help companies such as banks and insurers build fintech-like or insurtech-like experiences very, very fast. So basically we're changing the way people are building software and how we can deliver, like omni-channel experiences that makes us all better off as users of these services. Previously, so I'm this is my third startup. I was always in all of them, the first marketing hire. So my experience covers IoT, retail, finance and accounting, and now obviously financial services. And since I've always started from the ground up, you could say the 0 to 1 kind of person. And this is what gets me excited. Basically, driving the go-to-market, setting up the foundations for sales enablement, product market fit, and so on and so forth. So thank you again.
Thank you as well, Monica. We also have Matei Psata, co-founder and CMO at TPS Engage from New York. New York. Hi, Matei.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matei and I'm freezing because it's cold in New York. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of TPS Engage. We're kind of an atypical startup in the sense that we're in a field that's not really that popular yet with startups. So we built a marketplace that connects almost every digital billboard in the world, like physical digital billboards. So right now we are connected to about 500,000 digital billboards, and we enable anyone to just log in the platform, create an account, and buy a billboard anywhere, buy space on a digital billboard anywhere from Times Square to Europe to Bucharest to Asia at cost that usually shock people in the good sense of the word. So we started about 4 years ago. We're part of Techstars. We grew a lot over the past couple of years. Right now, we have thousands of startups and businesses working with us, anything from small, medium businesses to companies or brands or celebrities like Kanye West, Snoop Dogg. We work with Pixar, with Morning Brew, if you're familiar with the up-and-coming newsletter business, more than up-and-coming because they're huge already. TikTok, GoDaddy, Monster, you name it. So And my personal background is marketing and advertising. I've kind of been all over the spectrum, started in PR, then worked in big agency holdings, moved on to a couple of e-commerce type businesses that were doing hundreds of millions in ARR. So, and then co-founded my own startup. So I kind of been on all the sides of the bat. So it's a very interesting experience, and I'm looking forward to talking to all of you.
Thank you, Matei. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, Daniel Bird, Channel Account Manager at Hubspot, joining us from Florida. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm definitely excited to learn from you all, but also share some insights from the HubSpot side. If all of you don't know, HubSpot is one of the leading marketing automation tools, but also up-and-coming CRMs worldwide. We service businesses that are growth, in that growth mindset, really for scaling companies. My role at HubSpot is essentially I work with not only our direct clients, but I work with a group of 50 HubSpot partners, which also bring our services to their clients. So I think I bring a unique perspective from not only working with clients on their B2B strategy, but also working with agencies on how to position HubSpot as a platform for their different B2B operations and marketing and such. My personal background, I come from the recruitment advertising space. So I've been in tech now about 7 years. Getting my start at Indeed.com, and then ultimately ZipRecruiter. So happy to chat with you HR folks offline if you need any help posting jobs or trying to attract the right candidates. But my passion for marketing comes from really being at those two companies and seeing the work they were doing with veterans. I was a veteran in my past life. And I helped spearhead at ZipRecruiter some of the veteran outreach with marketing, and it just led to my love of that. And that's what leads me to HubSpot about a year ago. So like I said, excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and thanks to all of you. Looking forward to see a lot of diverse perspectives into today's topics. First of all, we encourage an interactive approach to our events, so make sure you use the chat window to address questions to all of our speakers. If you'd like to speak up or add something or ask something, you can use the raise hand, and we'll also have a dedicated 15 minutes Q&A session in the end. But if anything comes to mind and you'd like to ask on the spot, just put it into the chat window and we'll make sure we will address it when possible. So it is amazing to be here in such great company. Thank you all for joining us at our B2B Marketing Channel Performance Conference. A couple of years ago, right in the midst of the pandemic, we at NNC have launched the B2B Academy brand, which is a knowledge sharing platform. It includes training and events dedicated to our business ecosystem. We want to empower companies with the right growth tools to achieve their business and revenue goals. And the event we are holding today is part of this initiative. And by the way, for those of you who will stay until the end of the session, we will have a special surprise, a virtual gift bag that my colleague Loredana will tell you more about. So make sure you stay until the end. Now, between a pandemic, recession, inflation, and quite a tense political and military situation here in Europe that impacts economies all around the world, much has changed in the B2B marketing environment and is changing as we speak. In order to address all these challenges and still remain on track with revenues and business goals, marketers and companies in general need to quickly adapt, reconsider both their strategies, the marketing channels they are using, and how are they using it. Besides, marketing teams face a lot of pressure when it comes to showing performance. Not only do they need to drive revenue, but they also need to find ways to prove it. So without the right metrics, you're going to struggle to prove your direct or indirect impact on new leads and sales. At the same time, there are some studies that show that only 23% of marketers are confident they're tracking the right KPIs. So it's clearly an issue many of us are facing. We now see marketers as jugglers. They juggle with channels, with numbers, with resources or lack of resources, while still keeping their campaigns on track and in line with the ultimate strategic goals. And I'm sure many of you can relate to this. So how do we keep all the balls in the air? How do we choose the right marketing channels for our target audience? How do we make sure it matches our marketing and business goals? How do we optimize the campaigns? How can automation help us? In the following 45 minutes, we hope to answer as many of these questions as possible. It will be a dialogue, at some points, maybe even a debate. And I hope that at the end of today's session, we will all have learned something new to put into practice. So I will start with asking the same question to each of our speakers, because you represent quite different companies. From the perspective of the organizations you represent, what do you see as the most common challenges around marketing channels? And also, what do you think are the best practices that other companies should approach in 2022? Terry, what can you tell us from your perspective?
Well, thanks, Juana. Those are two great questions to start with. At Rave, marketing is really focused on building a demand gen engine to fuel our growth. So with our inbound strategy and our branding initiatives, what we're trying to do is deploy multiple marketing channels to drive the awareness, interest, consideration, and action. And at each one of these phases, we need to be showing our performance in terms of the leads that we generate, which then results in pipeline and bottom line results of closed won deals. So just to give you a little bit of background, there are 4 groupings of channels that we pursue. First, obviously, is digital. That includes SEO to drive organic traffic, to optimize our website. And then there's paid search and paid social. Second group would be email. We run campaigns across 5 verticals, and we target both net new and cross-sell, upsell to our customer base. Third, events. So we're doing over 70 trade shows this year, a number of user groups, and then, of course, our annual Rave Summit. And then finally, we put effort into our lead gen programs, which are sponsored content or sponsored webinars, direct mail, and some of these pay-for-play kind of initiatives. So when I thought about these key challenges around marketing channels, I just want to maybe talk about 2 of them. The first one, and I'm sure you've been asked, by others, is like, why don't we show up on page 1 of rankings for our SEO keywords? I get asked that quite a lot. And last year, the second half of the year, we revamped our entire digital strategy and launched a new website in September. And of course, technical-wise, in terms of technical site performance, it's much faster, much higher health scores. Our bounce rates were down, but as you know, ranking for organic terms take longer, right? We did a review of our keywords, we performed our competitive analysis. We're working to update our content strategy, adding fresh new pages. But really, overnight, you don't start to rank on those keywords right away, although we have been making significant headway. So to kind of attack this kind of challenge, I put in like sort of a parallel strategy in terms of paid search, but that while we're working on this longer timeline for SEO, we also wanted to show on page 1 in our paid ads. So no matter what search term you're looking for in our industry, we would be visible. So we've been running a domination campaign with impression share strategy, and supplementing it with additional campaigns on a more conversion-focused strategy. And both of these strategies combined with our SEO work is giving us the visibility that we need for anyone that's searching for the solutions that we can provide. I would also say that the other big challenge is balancing your program spend between branding and thought leadership versus lead gen programs. I think we all know that you need to provide air cover for branding and awareness, but then you're asked all the time to show ROI. So in terms of making that balance, I make the call based on where we are in terms of our industry presence per industry, per vertical that we're in. So if we have a stronger presence, obviously invest more on the lead gen efforts. And in industries where we're less established, I actually overinvest to establish thought leadership and brand visibility, and then balance that with lead gen programs. I don't know if you want me to go on to the other question.
No, let's see some other perspectives as well. So thanks for sharing, Terry. We all relate, especially to budget balancing and prioritizing things to fit into what we have on the table. Monica, what can you tell us from your perspective in terms of challenges as well as some best practices?
Yeah, thank you, Anna. So I'm going to frame my answer from the perspective of a company that was started like about a year ago. So we're not nearly there where you are, Terry. So before choosing the channels, I think the two most important questions that we had to ask ourselves was, okay, how are we getting the insights? So when you just start out a business, you don't really have a lot of traction or awareness. I found that it's really, really effective to go speak to your customers. So this is what I do. From day one, I was on sales calls. I was chatting to advisors, to our partners, to really get a feel for the market. I was interviewing customers because customers or leads will eventually tell you which are the channels, what do they read, where they are, what events they attend, so on and so forth. So this is first step. The second step or question is, how do we create a narrative that gets their attention? And here, I think I have to reference, for example, like Hubspot with your inbound marketing and now the flywheel narrative, or the Zora narrative with the subscription economy. Of course, we're not nearly there. We just started, but our unique viewpoint around this is something we call core revival. So basically, we know that in financial services, companies don't actually want to change their core banking system because it's a multi-year effort that often goes bust. So the thing is, how do we revive it, let them play in the digital age, but actually not change what they have, which is a COBOL-based core banking that still works, but is not fit for the purpose and the engagement of the digital apps that we now all use. So these are the two things that we did last year. And now moving on to channels, what we got. So let me say it another way. We didn't go straight away into lead gen because we're an enterprise solution. You cannot just put your card and buy it. And frankly, it's expensive. So the sales process in a bank is quite complex, takes months, lots of stakeholders. So we started with the demand gen. How do we build our brand? How do we build our credibility, our thought leadership, so on and so forth? So actually, I'm very glad to announce that next week we're launching our podcast, which we're using as a tool to engage our audiences, both customers, partners, advisors, and so on, which is like a great platform for getting content out of. We leverage so far LinkedIn because obviously that's where most of our audience is. We're starting webinars. We just had a webinar with KPMG, so we're trying to go through our network. So first of all, since we're a new company, we don't have like a very high audience, a very large audience. So we try to leverage other companies' audiences. We have a great CEO that we're lucky. He's a very charismatic and good speaker that I can take him and build out our audience from our partners' audience, and so on and so forth. And this year, we're also experimenting with events. And something that we call, this is an idea from David Gerhardt, something that we call founders brand. So again, we're leveraging our founders through videos, because especially like on YouTube and LinkedIn, video is like the best medium out there. So I cannot say, we have these very complicated, very complex dashboards for tracking things. We're still experimenting. And I think the most important thing that we track are number of booked meetings. So people coming through the website, writing on LinkedIn, sometimes even writing on, on my Instagram somehow, asking to meet and have a demo and talk to us. This is our most important metric right now to generate buzz, because this is what we need.
Mm-hmm. So Monica just gave us the startup perspective with doing things, step by step, first generating some buzz, getting known on the market. Matej, what can you tell us about your own approach?
Yeah, so I think this is going to be a very interesting and kind of balanced view, because I think in terms of our experience, we're somewhere between Terry and Monica, because we're 4 years old, so we've had the chance to experiment some things already. And it's definitely going to be a bit controversial. So in our experience, we went through different stages. We went through what I would call for ourselves the traditional stage, in which we went down the kind of beaten path when it comes to lead gen and when it comes to sales automation, going through things that we knew other companies were doing. That basically means automating as much as possible through the sales process, using Hubspot for that, by the way. So I'm happy to share about the experience of trying different tools, trying the traditional nuclear approach is what we call it, in the sense of simply buying contacts, buying leads, and trying cold emails, testing out different subject lines, testing out different drip campaigns, and trying out everything that you can imagine when it comes to one-to-many sales, but in a one-to-one approach. LinkedIn as well, obviously, a lot of niche platforms as well, because there are some niche platforms depending, and that was an interesting insight for us. Personally, I wasn't aware of that until a few years ago. Based on the industry that you're in, everyone talks obviously about LinkedIn and about Twitter and about there's a few popular platforms, but based on the industry that you're in, there are platforms that are dedicated most likely to your industry, right? So when it comes to out of home, which is our industry, there is a platform that's dedicated to out of home salespeople. And that's a tool that you can use to your advantage. So we were at that stage. We were focusing a lot on direct sales. And for us, we never cracked it. I think there was a lot of reasons there, in the sense that we never cracked something that could scale at the speed that we wanted it to scale. There's also a lot of competition, because again, out of home being a very traditional medium, you mostly 99% of business is done through direct sales. So you have people who have long-term relationships with these people. And that's very tough to crack as a new startup, right? I mean, I think, Monica, you're in the similar situation right now, right? Because you have, apart from the technological barrier, you also have, suppliers that have been working together for decades in some situations. So there's a relationship there that's, no matter how good the product is, sometimes, you have to get past that point. So then what we did different, and that's where we saw amazing success, was we actually started treating an B2B more similar to B2C marketing. We went behind this philosophy in which we're like, we see all the pitches that we get via LinkedIn, via cold emails, and I'm sure everyone on this conference can see that. I mean, I don't know how much you use LinkedIn apart from selling anymore, right? Because if I ever go on LinkedIn, I have hundreds of messages, automation waiting for me, telling me to buy this and that. So now it's like, myself as a marketer, I don't like that experience. So I don't want to offer that experience to another marketer. However, what I like is going on Twitter and seeing something that gets me excited, seeing a product that people are talking about. And funny enough, what we did and what was kind of our launchpad in the US was last year during the whole GameStop saga that everyone was talking about. We did this sort of viral marketing thing. It was obviously a bet, and it's very hard to replicate viral marketing, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try it, right? Even if you try it 10 times and 9 times it doesn't work, that's fine. It only needs to work once, to give you a lot of impact. And we bought this billboard that said GME go brr, which was a meme that was going around. We then started seeding it on various platforms, mostly Reddit, because that was kind of the meeting ground for that community. And it just blew up. The post ended up being the #1 Reddit post of all time. We're directly linked to it. And we're still getting business from that 1 year in, right? Every time there's the GameStop celebration, something happens to GameStop, we see people coming into us and talking about doing various billboards. So that was one thing, and that honestly was also a huge lesson on how to not scale your marketing too fast compared to the moment your product is in, because we ended up having hundreds of thousands of people on the website overnight, and we weren't ready for that. We were ready to obviously increase our business, but that was too much. That was a great learning because we then had to optimize, and we've had other viral campaigns since then, but we've been able to manage and capture more of the demand than we did in the initial stage, where it kind of took us by surprise as well. We were hoping for it to work, but we weren't hoping for it to work that well, right? So I think my point is, apart from doing what is the bare minimum, I would call, like doing SEO, doing any forms of PPC and optimizing it, that is definitely mandatory, but that will not make you stand out. That does not guarantee success. You have to do that just to get yourself started. Doesn't mean that if you're doing some lead gen, some SEO, some PPC, some YouTube campaigns, and some LinkedIn automation, because some people say, oh, I do all this. They're like, and it still isn't working. Well, yeah, because that's literally the bare minimum that you should do. You need to find your own marketing mojo beyond that and figure out what you're good at. Some companies are really good at content marketing. They have really good writers on the team and they write amazing stuff. HubSpot has done this, right? So a lot of the marketing that, in my opinion, made HubSpot stand out in the beginning was the very good quality of content that they were putting out. Hootsuite did the same back in the day when social media was up and coming. So that's kind of the position in which we're in. Obviously, some companies are very heavy PPC spenders, which is fine, and they optimize on that. But if that's not the way you're comfortable, I think you should adapt to it, because that doesn't guarantee success if it's not something you feel you can really stand out from the crowd in.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Thank you, Mate. So don't be afraid to be creative, to think out of the box, why not have a B2C approach to B2B? After all, there are humans who are purchasing our solution or deciding on the purchase. So Daniel, I've heard HubSpot several times in our previous speakers, obviously. Being as objective as you can be, what does HubSpot, or what do you see are the main challenges, marketers face when it comes to marketing channels in 2022?
Absolutely. So there's two huge buzzwords, or two huge things that really come up in a lot of my conversations with both the agencies that I work with and the clients. I would say the big ones are personalization, or understanding your buyer persona, but also reporting. So I think it's important to understand, whenever you're marketing to channels, to understand who your buyer persona is, where they live. And I think Monica mentioned it, really getting out there and understanding what platforms they're on, where they're seeing and viewing content, how they're engaging with content. So I would say that's a huge one. And then number 3 is, and this comes from our State of Marketing report, is marketers on average use around 3 channels. I think understanding not to get spread too thin. Like, it's awesome to be out there in every single channel, but where the most successful marketers, according to HubSpot, have seen success is really focusing in on what buyer persona they're selling to and not extending themselves too much. In ways in which they're doing that, number 1 was social media, obviously, but I think that's a key one. But back to my original point about reporting, and then also personalization. So understanding that buyer persona, obviously, what channels you're marketing to, but with reporting, we're just a piece of the puzzle as marketers. We're getting those engagement statistics, understanding where our contacts are being generated in our CRM. But further down the funnel, it's important to understand, like, are these contacts we're generating, we're pumping all this money into LinkedIn, to paid social. Is this leading to close-won deals? So our superiors are asking, is this actually leading to something? So I think understanding full funnel reporting is something that HubSpot's done a really good job over the years. So I would say that's a big one. And then finally, something to consider with social media, and I thought this was interesting, and I'll leave it with this. I wanted to keep it short. I know everyone had great insight. But I think playing by the rules of the platforms, the channels that you're marketing to, where I see companies run into issues is they're overposting on LinkedIn, or maybe they're doing Google ads, and really playing by those rules, understanding how many posts I can do per week, making sure that I'm engaging those clients. Nobody wants to be sold to on LinkedIn or, Google. They want something that's personalized to them. So I would say those are the things I'm seeing, but really back to the personalization and reporting. If we can get contacts, that's great, but we need to understand, like, how is this growing the business and what's important to our stakeholders within our organization, and how we can report on that and show them.
Mm-hmm. Great insights, Daniel. So, and actually, one thing you said about, the number of channels companies are addressing leads the way to my next question. Channels are constantly changing and evolving, and the average organization, we have to be fair, don't have enough time or budget to be present on every channel. So this means that brands need to focus on choosing the right types of channels. But let's see, how do we do that, and how do we set up our strategy up front? Monica, FlowX AI is a low-code enterprise platform that enables, banks and financial institutions to build apps in just a few weeks. Like you said, you are a startup that has recently entered the market, so you are closer to that initial planning and strategy milestone. How did you choose the channels you are focusing your marketing efforts on?
Well, so our thinking was, so I mentioned LinkedIn. I think that's pretty obvious, but it's not in the sense that we're setting up LinkedIn automation and doing outreach. It's not. Actually, we do have Hubspot as a platform, both as marketing automation and CRM. And what you are doing together with my sales team is to basically integrate with ZoomInfo, get some stakeholders and names and addresses from our target accounts, and then do outreach through email, but it's very, very personalized. I mean, we look at their annual reports, if they are head of retail banking or corporate banking, what they said in the press, if they mentioned something about the company objective. So we're sort of doing it in an ABM kind of fashion. And we put LinkedIn on top of that, but we don't automate LinkedIn. It's purely one-to-one. Then another thing that really works well on LinkedIn, you know that the algorithms always favor people, not company pages. So of course we do have a company page if somebody looks at it, but it's mostly like, candidates. What we try to do is we try to build the profile of each of our team members or management team and have them share and create and distribute our content. This has led to incredible numbers, spark conversations, so on and so forth. So that's how we are using LinkedIn. So generally, I don't think it's there's a good channel or a bad channel. It all depends on how you use it. So this is our point of view on LinkedIn now. And now, as I said, I'm really, really, excited about this podcast, which is audio, of course, just to maximize, all the people that are listening to, on Spotify or Apple, and that get into the habit of listening to a show every Sunday when they go to the market. But we're also leveraging it on YouTube as a video channel, because I think video is the most powerful because you can mix and match and repurpose it any way you like. So this is a bit of our thinking behind.
Mm-hmm. And there's one thing you've mentioned previously, which I'd like to emphasize, the fact that you talked to your customers up front, right? You had this initial conversation that I'm sure helped in setting up your approach based on how they consume content, right?
Exactly. I mean, if you know to engage people, they will tell you. It doesn't take a lot of pulling and pushing. And sometimes when I'm not able to, talk to some people, I get my team members, my customer success, my sales colleagues to ask them specific questions. And they're usually very, open to talking about it.
And related to this subject, I just saw a very interesting thing on my LinkedIn feed earlier. A marketing manager actually said that there is this exercise he did for a couple of days. He did the job of an SDR, a sales development representative, and he actually engaged with prospects and customers right there. So he talked to them, and this brought him a lot of insights on how to approach the overall strategy and what to prioritize. So definitely engaging with customers should be a top priority.
Yeah, that's number one. I mean, I've worked in healthcare, in IoT, in finance and accounting, and that's always the first step.
Great. Daniel, what else can you tell us from HubSpot? I know you have a lot of good insights, data. You run a lot of surveys with your agencies and customers. What do HubSpot's insights tell us about, how companies are planning on their marketing channels?
Absolutely. So I think from the perspective, I mentioned a little bit in the last segment, but in terms of buyer persona, I think it comes back to what industries are you focusing in on the B2B world? Who are we selling to? Understanding our customers, understanding their specific buyer's journey. If we're selling to, let's say, like a manufacturing company, are they really going to be on paid social, or would they view us somewhere else, whether it's Google, however it is? So understanding our target audience is a huge one. But I also think that something that hasn't been mentioned yet is, and something that comes up with my clients and also my agencies, is a retargeting approach as well. So if they're not seeing us on one piece of content that we're active on, having a retargeting strategy in the background to say, okay, they're not seeing us here, but we need to be able to ensure that we're retargeting them on where they live. And then at the end of the day, marketing is a try and fail kind of game, right? So you set up these campaigns within, whether it's HubSpot or whatever platform you use, understanding, separate campaigns versus having it all going at once. You really need to segment down to like the campaign strategy that you have, the message that you're sending on these specific channels, and then measuring that. And then whatever one is successful, going with that. So I think starting off, it can be tough because you can say, okay, I'm spread so thin, I really don't understand. But I think as simple as understanding what that buyer's journey is for the industry that you're targeting, will give you a good start, and then maybe run 2 to 3 different campaigns with similar messaging, and then analyzing that reporting in HubSpot or another platform to say, okay, this is what was successful. But retargeting is hugely important. I don't think it's been mentioned yet on this call. It's mentioned a bunch of times in our state of marketing report that came out. So I thought it was relevant to bring up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Daniel. Mm-hmm. I'd like to go back to Terry a bit. Terry, at Rave, Mobile Safety is a critical communication and collaboration platform that targets various audiences, from state, education, to healthcare and corporate. How do you at Rave track, measure, and report on marketing channels across all these industries?
Sure. So I think the first place you start is determine a source of truth for your organization, and then tie that source of truth to your company goals and objectives. So for us, we use HubSpot for marketing automation, but Salesforce is our CRM and Salesforce is our source of truth. So our team has built a set of official performance dashboards. These report on our overall company performance. You can take various cuts of it in terms of net new versus cross-sell, upsell. You could look at it per vertical, per product, per sales team, per channel. And as an executive team, we've all agreed that these were the dashboards we will draw KPIs from. We submit those to our board. We look at them on a weekly, quarterly basis. So that's the first level. Then each function has their own performance dashboard. And for those, I look at that with my team in terms of vertical. Are we meeting our targets and goals per vertical? Are we leveraging the various marketing channels? Which ones are most effective? And then what is the status of the marketing opportunities that we drive? So the questions we ask is how many, right? How many MQLs, how many ops, how many wins, how big, what's the pipeline amount, what's the bookings amount, what's the ASP, and then what's the quality? What's the conversion rate from an MQL to an op, from an op to a close one, which is basically your win rate. And you could then drill down to the last level, which is KPIs per marketing channel, right? So you look at the website and there are these key KPIs that you can benchmark against in terms of web traffic or conversion rates, bounce rates, site speed. We implement UTM tracking to know where referrals are. And then you can go down the list, right? Paid search, CTR, CPC, conversion rate, CPL. And we hold ourselves and our partners, our vendors that we work with accountable for these types of metrics. So it's a cascaded approach of really tying all these back to our business goals and objectives. And everyone on our team can then understand which metrics matter for them.
Mm-hmm. And one of the beauty of digital marketing is that everything can be measured, right? Everything
Right.
you can track whatever comes from, and you can put a clear, figure on what generated what on which channel. Thank you, Terry. Now let's talk a bit about optimization and why not creativity when it comes to your marketing channel approach. And one of the most interesting questions we got from one person that registered for our event today was how to outbound and inbound without a sales team. And I'd like to pass the mic to Matei at TPS Engage. You've created the most accessible way for businesses to advertise on digital billboards. And I know you don't have a sales team. So how do you do it? What is your unique approach? I know you've mentioned a few tips and tricks, but maybe you can dig more in depth.
Sure. Yeah, that question fits us perfectly, and I promise I'm not the one who asked it. Simply because, like I said, we went through this process where we were looking at what other companies in our space were doing, and tried to replicate and optimize that, but simply realized that's not the format that works for us. It also becomes a different type of battle, because if you're trying to fight with a bigger company using the same tactic, you just need more resources. And that's a good strategy if you have access to those resources. But if you're fighting a company who's been on the market for 20 years, it's absurd to think you're going to do the same thing and somehow simply win, right? Win that battle. So for us, what I think works really well is that we've basically focused on getting a lot of relevant inbound traffic, right? And we get that through a couple of ways. We get that through obviously the viral campaigns that we do that I mentioned. We do that through a lot of SEO. And it's interesting because in our space, SEO is kind of under accessed. You have people who are doing SEM, so they are paying for ads, but people are smart enough to skip a lot of ads, or kind of differentiate what's an ad and what is actual relevant content. So we're seeing that we're capturing a lot more traffic, even when we do our own PPC ads, from organic traffic to SEO than we are from PPC ads. And then instead of, getting salespeople that are trying to either upsell or they're trying to sell something to the people, we have either customer support. So we have a great customer support team and honestly, with the customer support team, I think going back a bit to what Daniel was saying in the terms of knowing your buyer persona, I would also say know your buyer's personality, which means what's the tone of voice that you have your customer team use. Some prefer the corporate angle. They want to feel safe. They want to have someone that is very presentable, that is very up to a point very salesy. Maybe that's comforting for them, right? They need someone like that. Other clients want someone who is way more relaxed. They want someone that they can feel comfortable with because they're not so corporate or not so strict. So we battled with ourselves a bit to kind of figure out the right tone of voice for the customer support team. And once we figured that out, we actually saw conversions rate increasing just from the chat, just from the conversation, because we were at the right pace between being serious enough, because we're not going to be, jesters, but also being relaxed enough that we immediately stood out from other companies in the space that these people were talking to. And so that was one thing. Then the account management team, it's also important to kind of realize that each client has different needs. So we kind of separated it, and we have an account management team that handles more high profile clients, because like I mentioned, we work with thousands of SMBs, but we also work with a number of high profile clients. And obviously the high profile client won't, just enter the chat and text someone there. They want someone they know, they want someone they can build a relationship with. But same story, they're not salespeople. So the account manager, and I think that's what, again, our clients appreciate, and this is specific from business to business, is that the account manager is reactive. The account manager is not pitching. The salesperson will send reminders weekly to a client, even after the campaign is done, and be like, hey, can I help you with anything? Try to upsell it, which works in some companies, but I didn't see that work for us. So the account manager is simply reactive. They have a very high response time, which again is really appreciated. And they're there whenever the client needs it. The only time, and again, this is also appreciated, the only time we do pitch something to clients is when we feel it's something that actually brings value, right? So it's not we have to send them something every week, just to keep them warm and nurture the lead and all that. We're like, don't send them anything if you don't feel it actually brings value. If you have a brilliant idea and you feel that this really has to be sent to their client, then yeah, of course, send it. So that's, I think, what we do different compared to other traditional sales-driven organizations.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing, Matej. So I'd like all of you to get a bit more specific, because in terms of the channels, because I see some questions in the chat, and also some questions we got up front regarding what works for you right now? Where should we put our money into? And perhaps all of you can share, your top 2-3 channels and what specifically are you doing there. But first, Daniel, I know HubSpot provides some interesting insights about the general channels that are approached by companies in both B2C and B2B in your Not Another State of Marketing report. What are some interesting data you can share with us from that?
Absolutely. So I think I shared a little bit of it before, but we measured how many channels that customers were using, specifically in the B2B space, as well as which channels were the most successful. And like I mentioned earlier, it's important not to be spread thin. It said 92% of successful companies were using 3. And then once you got down to 4 and 5, it was an extreme drop. So I think it's important to identify the top 3 based off the statistics. But based off these statistics as well, some things that we saw were obviously social media being one. I assume that LinkedIn's a big chunk of that, but we also have the Twitter sphere and things like that. One thing that I found was very interesting was video marketing was in the top 5. I know myself, I don't do a lot of, Vidyard type marketing for myself. I don't put a lot of content on LinkedIn around videos. But what we're finding in the B2B space is people want more of that personalized approach. They want to put a face to a name. I think someone mentioned it before, you go on LinkedIn, you see somebody's post, it's mostly them trying to sell you something. But if we can say, hi, I took the opportunity to read your profile, and, this is the offering I can do for your business, and putting that face into like a short video, which doesn't take us much time as marketers. And we can really generalize that for, a couple of different audiences. That can be extremely helpful. And then something that kind of made me chuckle was number 6 on the list was influencer marketing. I'm aging myself here, but I don't even think there was social media when I was a kid. So, really that influencer marketing has climbed the list that it was in past years. So being an influencer in your space, being a thought leader is something that is extremely important, whatever channel you're using. But yeah, the big takeaways were social media, website blogs and email marketing rounded out the top 3. But video marketing is really high up there. And it's something I take away that, I'm going to start using, whether it's in my outreach one-to-one or when it's, marketing HubSpot as a whole to partners out there. So that's what we're seeing on our end from our report.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Daniel. Monica, I know you mentioned LinkedIn as being one of the most important channels for you. Are there others, or maybe you can share some tips and tricks specifically around LinkedIn?
Well, as I said, we try not to overpower people. So on our Facebook, LinkedIn page, we generally post once a week. But then we have this strategy around posting specific content on specific, people around the company. So if I see something, for example, tying back to our ABM strategy, so I do follow people like VPs from certain banks. So if I see them posting something, then I go to our head of sales and say, look, this is the message this guy posted, write something on the topic, comment to his post. It's a lot of handcrafting, but when you're building from 0 to 1, you can afford to do some handcrafted things to build your initial base. I'm sure it will become much more automated long term. And what I wanted to add to Daniel's message, video marketing, I also believe in it and I want to try it out. Actually, I received some pitches like this and they were like very funny and personal. And as always, I'm very, very big on video. And it doesn't have to be, very crafted. Hire professionals, hire designers, animators, and so on. It can just be, our head of sales talking about how a customer solved a specific problem. You don't have to go very professional on this side, and you don't have to invest a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, so we heard video a lot. We know that's in the trends. Terry, how about you at Rave?
Oh, I think that the stats say it takes 6 to 8 marketing touches to generate a viable sales lead. And so you need those many touches to really nurture and pull them through your process. Provide them with the research and the understanding that they need so that you're actually addressing their pain points. So for us, what works best are integrated multi-touch campaigns where we have 5 to 6 marketing touches working in conjunction with our business development team, making 2 to 3 dials in the sequence. And these can be any number of the channels that we use, whether it's paid search or paid social or, coming to our website, downloading some content, clicking a CTA in an email, having seen us at an event. It's really your marketing mix, right? Enriching that intent from that person who's doing the discovery, who's trying to sort through against the competition, or just asking whether you can help solve their pain point. So I think that these integrated multi-touch types of campaigns have been by far the most successful, as you can imagine, because they allow the customer to be the ones looking for us to find the content that they need, and then for us to then be able to answer their questions, address their needs, and to convert them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Terry. So multi-touch is an omni-channel. Matej, because you're in, outdoor advertising, is outdoor also a channel in B2B?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think any channel, like you can probably tell by now, I think any channel can be used for B2B. It's obviously about how you use it, right? And we've had clients, for example, who have done ABM essentially through digital billboards. So, and the way they've done it, it was fascinating. And honestly, we didn't think about it. And when a client came to us and talked about this, we were like, damn, we should have thought of doing that for ourselves. Like, okay. And the way they did it, it's a company called Appen. They're a software company. And essentially they do a lot of direct sales. So a lot of their business comes from what you can define as traditional direct sales. And in order to get some leverage and get some differentiate themselves from other competitors, what they did was with the help of our tool, they mapped basically the headquarters of the clients they were pitching to, as well as various Whole Foods in proximity to the headquarters, because probably a lot of C-level people live nearby. And they started running campaigns at key hours on the billboard. So they were only running campaigns during the morning when there was incoming traffic, a bit during the afternoon when people would go out and eat, and closer to the proximity of the office. This was pre-pandemic, obviously. And in the evening when people were going home. And obviously the question that we get all the time with the out of home is, okay, how do you measure it, right? There's a lot of different ways of measuring it. In their case, they saw that salespeople in the proximity of billboards were having higher closure rates, and they were closing faster as well. The second was people were actually mentioning it. So salespeople were like, I went to a pitch today, and the client said, "Hey, I saw your guys' billboard," right? Which again is a great icebreaker and can help out, especially if you're pitching clients on a constant basis, and if you have a pretty long lead time with them, right? So that's one way to do it. Look at key locations around your clients' headquarters. Other clients have done stuff like they've put up billboards, used photos of it to then pitch to other clients. I actually shared the link a second ago how we ended up working with Snoop Dogg. And the story, just the short version of it, for whoever doesn't have time to go through the article, is instead of doing a direct sales approach, we just did a mock-up, and it was a contextual mock-up because cannabis was being legalized in New York, and we just found Snoop Dogg's manager's email on the web. We didn't have a connect direction. It wasn't like we knew someone who introduced us or anything. And we made a mock-up, and we told them, look, we want to put you up there. Would you like to do it? And we got the reply in 30 minutes. Right? That's amazing. Yeah, do it. Obviously, we covered the first experience because we're like, hey, we want an easy yes, right? Let's make it as easy as possible. And then they loved it. And we started working together on their album launches and everything. So I think you can use any channel, your ads. You can use TikTok as a business channel, which by definition, people say, no, that's just B2C. I've seen so many B2B done on TikTok if you have the right angle. There's a huge marketing community on TikTok. So you can use anything as long as you have the right content and the right angle for it.
Mm-hmm. So very creative outbound approach and also personalized. Okay. Many of you have mentioned HubSpot, but I know all of you, and I'm sure many of the people in the audience today use marketing automation platforms. And marketing automation is definitely on the top of our lips for quite some years. And many companies are starting to approach it and to use it. But I'm really curious to see, how do all of you specifically leverage a marketing automation platform to increase performance across channels? And I'm interested to see more about, your tips and tricks, or what are the features you use more on a daily manner. So let's see, Monica, I know you started using HubSpot, like you said, only recently, but maybe you can share a few about how do you see this working for you?
Yes. Thank you, Anna. So as mentioned, we do have like a sales outreach campaign happening in HubSpot. And basically it works like we got some info, we got the data, we move it into our HubSpot instance. Then we map out like various ICPs and settle them, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 based on geographies and verticals and so on. And then together with an SDR, we build out sequences that, of course, deliver very targeted messages. So we have like a sequence that takes about 2 weeks, more or less, that it's a mix of emails, LinkedIn outreach. And of course, we do have like a display running ads on LinkedIn on the same audience at the same time. Mix of calls and then more emails in order to reach out to these people, or at the very least get some our brand in front of them, because I always think like marketing and sales is basically one team. We just act on different levels. So if an SDR reaches out with a piece of content, I'm happy. This is awareness, that guy knows about our brand a bit. So this is, let's say, like a core workflow that we built in HubSpot. And of course, we have all the usuals, like newsletters. We run 2 types of newsletters. One is a more general marketing insight-based, And the other one is around product updates, where we get all our partners and customers. And we use it to both provide feedback about the product, what we launch new, like new stuff happening, new launches. And we also use it to, get insights, use it as a channel. Because I remember when we first started, initially we had support on Slack, and we worked really hard to decrease the load on the team, just to stop with all the Slack messages and try to move them towards HubSpot. So that's, it's not quite marketing and comms, but it's part of my MarTech stack abilities to basically help out the product team. So where were we? This is how we use HubSpot at the moment. Of course, we do have some dashboards, some reporting, but these are like, bread and butter, nothing spectacular.
Nothing.
We need it.
Yeah. And like Terry mentioned, reporting as well. Besides reporting, Terry, what are the most, beneficial features you are seeing in marketing automation?
Well, I certainly agree with Daniel about knowing your buyer, knowing your target audience. Everything starts there, understanding their pain points, and then delivering content that speaks to that. So email marketing is a primary means of how we use HubSpot. It's low cost. You have complete control of your messaging, the frequency. You could lead them with the right content in a given sequence along their buyer's journey. We have short, succinct, targeted emails that we sent out that uses different media mix, from infographics to multimedia assets. And it's allowed us to, target by persona, target by, industry, and gotten really great results in terms of average open rates and high CTRs and high conversion rates. So as a platform for that, HubSpot's absolutely perfect. We use it for all our lead processing workflows, lead scoring. And, I spoke about the sync between HubSpot and Salesforce. We also have a sync with SalesLoft, which is a more personalized nurture for our SDRs. But having these various technologies speak together and then have them integrated to work across our various teams has been really important. And so we leverage HubSpot in that means too. It allows us to have on-point messaging, relevant content. It gives us flexibility in terms of our marketing mix, and it allows us to have really a much more integrated approach to how we market.
Thank you, Terry. So personalization and also integration for your technical stack is key. Matej, because you are really inbound focused, what are the most important benefits you gain from automation?
Yeah, so I totally agree with what Terry and Monica said. On top of that, we use automation a lot to try to have a standardized, customer experience. So basically, the way it works, we have some things that, based on the step the client is in, we send them we have various workflows in place to kind of help them along the way. Especially not having, the SDR or sales team that can talk one-to-one, then you need to make sure you have an automation in place that offers at least an experience that clarifies, right, to the client what they can expect. Especially in our case, because what we do is new to a lot of people, so they don't know exactly what to expect, right? So that's really important for that for us and companies that are similar to us. It also helps understand, I personally find the reporting really helpful on any workflow that you set up, because it helps you understand if your messaging is right. And I think a lot of the things that we do as marketers are about message. Of course, the medium and the way you deliver it matters. If you're able to find various growth hacks, like it was with LinkedIn years ago, that you could do. There's a lot of hacks that are going around that you could export your connection list and stuff like that. And those are great, but in the end, it's about the message that you want to send. And I think automation tools can help you figure out what the right message is by giving you, the data at scale. So there's that. There's more specific data. If you're doing a lot of one-to-one, there's a lot of tools that can help you really understand who's visiting your website and what they're looking for. And I also, for example, I also believe a lot in the fact that not everyone wants to talk to a real person. Some prefer or not everyone wants to talk to a real person, or if they do, they prefer a chat. And I think the live chat feature is underdeveloped for a lot of businesses. And I'm not talking about necessarily chatbots. That's one way to do it. But even the, what is it called? The knowledge center, right? Not a lot of companies have the knowledge center, which can also be part of automation, right? Based on the questions that your clients ask, just send them the information. A lot of people want to do their own research. They don't necessarily want to talk to someone. Depending on the stage that they're at, they want to talk to someone because they're frustrated they couldn't find the information beforehand, right? Just because they're contacting the sales people or the customer support doesn't necessarily mean they want to. So ideally, you can use automation to also optimize the time that your team is spending on customer support or managing leads, and focus on bringing new leads instead of that. So that's kind of how we use it.
Thanks, Mate. And Daniel, since you are at the core of automation where everything happens first, what insights can you give us from HubSpot in terms of the features and functionalities the customers are looking for now or in the future? Maybe you can give us some hints on what HubSpot is preparing.
Yeah, I would say, well, we just relaunched our Service Hub this month. With some pretty cool features on the customer success side. So I was happy to hear some folks speak to that. But I think I mentioned it in the chat, and I mentioned it earlier as well, retargeting with regards to...
I think Daniel just freezed, right?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. What I was saying is a lot of folks, they're I'm unstable, I guess. Okay, now. Okay, what I was saying is a lot of folks, if they fill out a form, maybe they're not ready to purchase this moment. But what I think a lot of clients are taking advantage of is workflows that target customers that are returning. For example, what I see a lot is a lot of my agencies will reach out and say, hey, we were able to see that you were on the website. You filled out a form previously. We have you as a contact in our system, but hey, you were on our website. Are you interested in marketing? It's like, that's not very personalized, but what if you're able to set up workflows around, hey, I viewed a pricing page. Hey, I viewed a blog. I downloaded an ebook. That's such more of an impactful outreach. Like you downloaded the ebook on how to improve your marketing automation and channel strategy. I can put together a workflow that's built out around that for returning customers. So that's a big segment of business that we can gain by setting up a strategy around that as well. But I will say with regards to like customer service, I think that's more and more important that we have a very smooth buyer's journey, going from that top of the funnel where we sit down to our customer success and having those speak together, whether it's, a client that works in managed services that needs, an onboarding process in place. Like, great, we have the lead, we sell them, but what's next? So because ultimately those people turn into promoters, and that's what we want. The more people that can promote our brand, the better. So I would say, with regards to what I'm seeing is, those re-engagements, those retargeting when people are coming back, but also then thinking as marketers, what's next after we sell them? Because that's still in our wheelhouse. If we have an influencer, that's better than spending $10,000 on, paid ads. So we really need to speak with our leadership or speak with our team about like, how does that process look? Is it broken? And filling those gaps.
Thank you, Daniel. So we are a bit after the hour. And since we are approaching our Q&A session, I see some very interesting questions in the chat panel here. I hope we will manage to address. But I just want to make sure that we don't miss any key message you'd like to get across to the attendees. So why don't we all take a quick round about what would be the final piece of practical advice you'd like to give the audience? Terry, is there anything?
Okay, I thought a little bit about this, and I guess I would say my piece of advice would be think partnerships, not silos. And I mean this in terms of both internal and external partners. For example, internally, we have shared goals amongst our marketing, sales, biz dev, product, customer success, all our teams. And our goal is to avoid silos of information, and to actually pay special attention to the handoff points when marketing kind of like throws a lead over the wall and expect the SDR team to pick it up, or the SDR set up the meeting and throw it over to the rep and expect them to just close the deal. We pay special attention to make sure that those touch points internally are handled as smoothly as possible. And that could be for any size company, big or small, that these are shared goals and we avoid these silos. And that there's a clear map of the entire lead to close, process to renewals and growth of that account advocacy. And then, externally, we work with a number of agencies, consultants, vendors, and I'm sure big or small, you probably have some at your disposal that you're leveraging. We leverage the expertise that they provide. We collaborate with them. We learn from them. For example, we work with NNC, who's hosting this session, and there's certainly a lot of expertise that they provide to us in terms of automation and use of HubSpot. And we've also used HubSpot, and we have our technical consultants from HubSpot that have really jumped in when we had some key critical questions to ask. And then, we have agencies for our paid media. We have agencies for website hosting and web dev. But whatever their competency and whoever else you're engaging, it's atypical that you have a team that does everything in-house. Leverage them and share insights and treat them as partners, not just as vendors. And I found that approach really enables us to move forward a lot faster and a lot more effectively together.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice, Terry. I love it. I've actually been dreaming for a while to make a webinar where we get the sales team leaders as well, and also the customer service, and really talk about alignment and how to not be siloed. Yep. So I'll let you know when that happens.
Yeah. Yep.
Monica, what is your final piece of advice?
Well, I guess it goes without saying that be creative, but it's not that. That's not the piece of advice. The piece of advice is don't be afraid to ask. I mean, I jumped in like this startup world. I'm building a podcast, haven't done it before. So basically, I just went to some very cool podcast hosters and said, look, do you have 15 minutes? I want to pick your brain. Teach me how to do this, and they respond positively. Or another, let's say, channel that I'm trying is this influencer in the financial services space. And this means I have to also read their posts, read what they publish, and then reach out to them and say, hey, you have this very interesting viewpoint that ties to our, core revival strategy. Would you mind chatting on this a bit? So things just, don't be afraid to ask because you might just get it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Great advice. Daniel, what is your final advice?
So I guess this is a little bit biased. So I feel like I'm a sales and marketer. I work with a lot of marketing agencies, and to the point about being a partner with my partners, I think that is huge. Like, don't act as though I'm a vendor, but like really partner with these agencies and bring value. So I think everybody wants value out of a partner. They don't want to hear you come in and say, like, just talk about your service all day. They will really want to understand what's important to them and the growth of their business. And as marketers, that's ultimately what we want to do. But I would say, I sell a software that is extremely complex, has a million different features. And what I've noticed is marketing or selling to pain or gaps within the organization, like understanding from this buyer persona, what are the typical gaps that we experience? Not everyone's the same, but maybe identifying 1 to 3 typical downfalls of this agency or gaps in their software or gaps in, their business day to day, and really understanding those versus going in and saying, we have HubSpot, Service Hub, Marketing Hub, Sales Hub. It's like, no one's going to read that. It's a feature dump, right? So if, you all like sell similar services or products, it's important to be like, listen, we have things that can fill the gap that you're experiencing with your customer success team versus positioning it as like all these different features. So I would say like marketing to that point too is like reaching out with, these are the gaps we see, and this is how we can solve for them, versus saying like, these are the cool features we offer. I think is like my biggest takeaway, and what I always preach to like my agencies who are like, we're full funnel marketer, and these are all the different cool tools we use. Like nobody really cares about the tools. They care about how you're going to solve for their pain.
Mm-hmm. So helping, not selling. Thanks, Daniel. Matej, how about you?
Yeah, but I think I just have two short points, and to add on what Daniel was saying, a learning that took us a while to really get and understand, because you might know the information, but you might not really, process it, was that sometimes the pain that you're solving is not necessarily the fact that you are improving their marketing or that you're helping them optimize their reports. Sometimes it's just that you're saving them time. You're saving your contact time. And we've had this with a lot of people that we work with. One of the reasons they weren't doing out of home before, one of them was the budgets and the fact that they didn't know they could be so accessible. But the second was that anytime they would be in contact with someone, they would be kind of oversold. The person was trying to help. They weren't talking just about the feature, but the client knew what they wanted. They wanted a couple of billboards there and there. Just tell me how much it is and help me. Because for them it's a small percentage of their entire marketing spend, so they don't want to spend a lot of time on that. So my point is, sometimes be careful when you're bringing value, just to bring a small counterpoint to that, because you might feel that you're bringing value because you're trying to understand and asking a lot of questions, but maybe your counterpart just wants an easy fix, an easy solution. And sometimes it's important to offer that as well. Obviously, it's based on the dynamic and the relationship. And the second point is, I know I talked a lot about creativity and doing stuff different and having an out-of-the-box approach, because just doing the basic stuff is not enough. But I just want to add, because a lot of people kind of, I think that you can choose between performance and creativity, right? They're not connected. The reality is that they are, right? Just because I'm saying you can do things out of the box, you can also track that really well. You can set KPIs to understand how different messages and different campaigns are actually helping you out. You can find out, it's amazing how precise we could track everything that we got from the viral campaign. And apart from like brand awareness and PR and all that, like actual inbound traffic, actual campaigns that were generated, we can then track how many clients, when we show that campaign to someone, as a case study, how does that convince clients compared to another campaign, right? So just don't settle on just doing creative stuff. Make sure you have the proper measurement tools in place to actually focus, to actually see the impact of that creativity.
Thank you so much, Matej. Thank you all for sharing all this interesting information. I'm sure we can talk for hours, but we are already over the time, and hopefully we can address a few questions. I saw some of you, and thank you very much. You already addressed some in the chat panel. Now it's the time, if anybody from the audience would like to speak up, unmute themselves and ask anything. Our speakers are here to answer you, and also some of the colleagues in our team are also here and can help you with answers. So you can use the raise hand feature, or you can just unmute yourself and speak up if you want.
So the fire chat was amazing. I followed it through the session. Not it was very interesting. I will let Stefania ask some questions, but there are some questions in the chat pane as well, which we can address.
Stefania?
Hello, hi.
Hello.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm not going to allow my camera because I have a cold, so I don't want anybody to see how awful I look while having this cold. I was wondering, first of all, thank you very much for all the information. I got some valuable information, and I'm about to implement them in my workplace. But I was wondering, how can you advertise, or how can you market something that it's not really marketable? And I'm going to explain this to you. I am working in a company that is active in more sectors, and some of them are constructions, some of them are architecture, some of them are I don't know if you know the term topography. Us in Romania, we know what topography is, yes. And these are not domains that you can actually market and promote normally on social media or any other conventional platform. And I was wondering, how can you market something that is not really marketable?
May I take this one?
Yes,
Juana?
Monica, and I think Matei would like to add as well. Monica, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Stefania. So from my experience, I used to work for a B2B lighting manufacturer. So basically we did all the light fixtures for the retailers, warehousing and so on. But we also had as an audience the architects. And I think that marketing to architects is actually very doable. So you've got professional associations, you've got communities, Slack communities, you've got events, you've got magazines, and I'm sure websites and so on that deal with architects. So I think there's like a world of opportunities here, as well as on the construction site for construction and for building. I know it's not a very sexy domain, but trust me, you can reach out to these people. And I'd be happy if you want to connect, and maybe I can give you some more insights offline.
Sure.
In the interest of time, of course.
Thank you very much.
And Matei?
Yeah, what I would add is I've seen domains that look unmarketable, and yeah, maybe the product you'd say is not that interesting, but there are so many things that you can do from. I remember one of the things, and this was just a great example of how you can market. It's basically employer branding, but back in the day, and I don't know why I remember this so much. There's this factory, again, Romanians will know it. It is the Olympia yogurt, right? And they were not promoting the yogurt, which is obviously a marketable product, right? But they wanted to, they basically were doing an internal presentation of the company results, the company financial results. And you would say, that's not a market. Okay, that's marketable. Maybe you can send a press release to business publications and take it from there. But what they did actually was they brought in a wrapper, and they basically wrapped their financial results, right? And that got picked up, and everybody was talking about the company and the factory, not about the product itself, right? So I think it depends what you want to market, right? If you want to market the service itself, yeah, that might be difficult. You have places, if you're talking about the pharma field, right? I used to work on RX products, right? The ones that are recipe on prescription only, sorry. Those are illegal to market by default. But what we would do there is we would create platforms that didn't mention the product, but would cover the topic, right? So if you had like products that were for children, you would create content around parenting. You wouldn't mention the product because it was illegal to do it, but there are ways to, go around this. So maybe think about it, not in the sense that how can I market this product directly? How can I put this on a billboard, on TV, in social media? How can I do SEO for this? But rather think how you can market the company can be in a lot of different ways, and that applies to any company. I honestly believe you can actually do marketing even for a nail factory, right? Which again seems totally unmarketable, but I think you can do stuff that people can get behind and actually talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. So I would have a question here, if I may, for Matei.
Sure.
So Matei, you are saying that in my case, it's not very important the product that I'm selling, but I should insist on marketing the company through, I don't know, for example, through the employees and through our activities and so on. And so the potential customers would get interested by our company, and they would get to meet our services also?
Right. Yeah. A better international example is the famous Volvo split, right? With Jean-Claude Van Damme doing the split between two Volvo trucks, right? That is a B2B. Who's buying trucks? Has any of us ever bought a truck for commercial use, for personal use? I don't think so, right? So that again is something that you would target. It's very B2B. But the fact that they did that, that was a way, and they have an amazing series. You should look up the Volvo case study, because they show how, they started marketing something that was kind of unmarketable. You could sell it, but it was a very transactional discussion. And they started presenting features in a way that gathered a lot of attention.
Okay. Thank you very much. No further questions here from my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania, for the question, and Monica and Matej for answering. Let's see, is there anybody else who would like to come off mute? I'm scooping through the chat panel. I see many of the questions were already answered.
I think somebody asked about the metaverse.
Yes, nobody answered that one.
No.
Who'd like to talk about the metaverse? Loredana, I think.
Yeah, I can take that one because we also had some interesting questions before, like when on the registration page. So we had people asking, what are some new tactics coming up in B2B in terms of generating leads and also marketing in general, and what are some old ways that we should disregard? As a mixed role between marketing and sales, I heard this before, especially in this meeting. I'm paying a lot of attention to tactics that work in terms of generating results, and results in business usually mean qualified leads for sales or actual money in the bank and so on. When I hear people talking about metaverse, it's like a hype. If you know crossing the chasm as a methodology, there's going to be this hype about metaverse. Then we're going to have a gap, which is usually 2 to 5 years. Then we're going to see what happens with the metaverse. And the challenge is that while people adopt things like TikTok or metaverse or early on, then you need to stay there for a couple of years to see what happens, long term. In B2B, we usually know customers are a bit more conservative. So in general, in B2B, the profile of the customer is less excited about new things, except a small proportion that would just test it, but wouldn't pay for it. Okay. So why I'm saying that is that while in B2C, there's probably going to be a much higher hype, in B2B, metaverse is still going to be cool for a while. People will test it and try it, but we won't see much transactions happening. That being said, I believe that there's a special place in the world for things like, using virtual spaces for meetings, but making them even more interactive or more fun, or so there's always a middle ground. But because we had this question, I also thought about, okay, what are some new ways? Where some new ways that are not necessarily 100% new, but that may be really important, are figuring out the buyer intent, right? As marketers, we don't like to spend time on, without understanding the customer signals. And why is it important? Because I think Matej already mentioned that customers don't want to interact all that much. We're more into the sort of a pull sort of sales, not that much push works these days, which means that we have to understand when the customer wants to buy, because more than 50% of customers in B2B, and there's some interesting research from Gartner and from Forrester and other big guys up there, there's some research showing that more than 50% of customers in B2B will take a decision to buy something before they get in contact with a salesperson, which means we need to understand buyer intent, okay? And I know it may sound complicated, and in order to leave you with some practical advice, I wanted to share that there's some data points that show intent. Some of the biggest data points is your customers looking for companies that are competing, or products or services that are competing your category. What does that mean? It means that get your money, put together a nice paper on, your competition, product, services, and so on. Put some money on remarketing, because I heard this a lot today, to push that out there to your LinkedIn network or through Google Ads and so on. And then you will see some really nice results. So I think this is not necessarily a very new one, but one that we will see more and more in the future. And in terms of what are some outdated ways, I believe that events, like physical events in person, start being less popular, also because of the pandemic, but also because people figured out a way to make it easier for everyone to do business in online and in digital and remote. So I believe that we will see more remote events and interactions and hybrid events and interaction, and less the traditional ones. So hopefully that was a long list of things that I gave as ideas.
Thank you so much, Loredana. Well, I'm sure we won't hold quite the next webinar in the metaverse, but sometimes into the future, we will get to meet with all our avatars there and hopefully drink some virtual cocktails. So since we are already 30 minutes after the hour, and since Loredana, you just got the mic, you may want to tell the audience, because I see many people are logging off, what is our virtual gift bag for them?
Oh my God, you guys. So I am right now, we are putting together a lot of content and a lot of educational content to share with our business community. We've been doing that over the last 2 years, and the feedback has been amazing. But people said, okay, I have all this information, but I don't know how to apply it. So we got together sort of a boot camps or course formats, which are 6 weeks of live meetings. Basically, we meet once a week, every week in the 6 weeks, and we talk about how can you upscale your game in terms of digital marketing, in terms of ABM, and different types of topics. We only can have these boot camps 4 times a year. I wish and I hope that in the future we will do more, but that's the full capacity right now. And we are just launching the bootcamp in May. In the bootcamp, we tackle all subjects like this one. Like yesterday, I had a whole session about buyer intent, how to do that easily, what to put together, so that you can catch the customer before, they already made a decision to purchase and so on. So these are the type of content that we put together. And I'm happy to extend a special discount. It will be available only in the next 2 weeks. So please, if you are interested, do that over the next 2 weeks, because we are probably going to close the registration soon. It's a really small crowd. We only take about a dozen people at a time. So, but right now, like, even if we said only a dozen, right now we have about 20 something attending, just because it is such a big demand. So let me know if you have questions about this. I will moderate the next session. Sometimes Juana moderates them, but it's going to be really interesting. And again, the feedback is amazing from the participants. So thanks, Juana.
And I think they can also join one of the ongoing sessions, right? Of the current class that we have. So you can see for yourself what's happening over there.
It's actually the last session is next week. I have a lot of requests to do that. I think I can share some snippets of what happens in these sessions, but otherwise next week is the last session for the current group. But yeah, well, just to tell you, today I spoke to someone, and Daniel was our Daniel was in the in this one-on-one, because we also do one-on-one to coach people on how to apply it in their business. And they said that just applying a few techniques that they learned through the bootcamp, they got a customer, and that customer is Uber in Germany. And I think that speaks for itself. But you know, we've seen a lot of lead generation for this course. We've seen like 30% business growth in terms of sales and so on. I won't continue to brag, because I hope that you understand each of these results are individual, but we've seen really positive feedback.
So thank you so much, everybody. Don't worry, we will send the discount code also in the follow-up emails we are sending with the recording. I'm so glad we still have 46 people up till the end, and we've had close to 100. And hopefully each and every one of you found something of value from this session. Stay close to our community. We're going to announce some other events soon. Also, most of the people here share their LinkedIn addresses, so feel free to reach out, and let's use LinkedIn for helping, not just selling. And let's all get in touch in some future events. Thank you so much, Terry, Monica, Matej, and Daniel, for sharing all these interesting insights, and especially thanks to everybody in the audience staying here up till the end. Have a great
Thank you so much.
Day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are.
Thank you, everyone.
See you. Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.